Welcome to Phone Booth Fighting, everybody. I am Richard Hunter.
And I'm Frank Mayer.
And together we do this podcast twice a week, absolutely free of charge. You can watch it on our YouTube channel, or you can subscribe in iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or wherever podcasts are available. We appreciate your support. So please subscribe in whatever medium you see fit right now. And speaking of right now, Frank, we have some special edition Phone Booth Fighting breaking news announcements to make. You are ready to tell Phone Booth Fighting listeners, for the first time anywhere, where you're going to be fighting next. Now, let me just build a slight bit of drama here by eliminating a few possibilities. Have you signed with Pride?
No.
No, okay.
Pride.
Because they're not happening right now.
Not that I didn't try.
Right.
Just couldn't find out where they were at.
Right. Elite XC. Is it possible that's coming back?
A version of it, maybe? No. Didn't get Elite XC either.
Could we see you fight in the Yama Pit? Do you remember the Yama Pit?
No, but it sounds interesting.
It was like a baby swimming pool. Anyway, that's just me being silly because I'm the two-time funniest comedian in Reno. But this is all
it almost
business.
Got on the whole YouTube thing. I figured I'd just follow the. It seemed to work out well for Kimbo.
Backyard fighting.
Backyard fighting.
Frank Mir coming to a backyard near you.
And it'll look better than what Tank Abbott did in his last one with Scott.
Yeah. You know what would be funny though is if you did backyard fighting, but it was all like really nice backyards, just like high-end suburban.
Middle class, upper middle class.
Yeah, you just show up and attack some unsuspecting generic white businessmen in the backyard.
I'm glad you went that way because I'm sure a lot of the people that are more thinking like, all right, you get one of those Mexican guys out there, and I'm like, come on, man.
No. All right. Well, enough of the silliness out of the way because Frank, the floor is yours. Explain to everybody where we are going to be seeing you fight next.
Well, basically, out of all the organizations that came forward, it came down to two that were very willing to go ahead and allow me to have my my desire of not being locked into one organization. I did that with the UFC for 15, almost 16 years, and the needy dogs. Anyways,
they got to eat. You got to feed them.
I do.
You got to get working somewhere.
Well, they have food. There's just affection. I don't know which one they want more. So, anyways, that was something I didn't want to have happen, and obviously it was coming down to Bellator and ACB. We're both seeming to be very understanding of the fact that that I didn't want to, unless I was their champion, be stuck only fighting for them, and because there's opportunities to fight other guys, and especially because like I said, Brock is somebody I would like to face, Fedor Emelianenko, somebody I would like to face, and in the past, certain things have not worked out with Fedor because of being locked into one organization, and it kind of sucks if you're part of an organization and the opponent you want to face is not and unwilling to come over there, then through contractual issues, then that fight never can be made. And so it finally came down to that between the two, and honestly, it just came down to a little bit on the financial aspect, who pays the most, and and Bellator at this point with Viacom obviously supporting them, I'm getting paid more than I made with the UFC, so I'm extremely excited that to be part of now the Bellator's roster with Scott Coker. They have some very legitimate heavyweights over there, and obviously first and foremost it comes up on my mind is to be able to fight Fedor. Hopefully that'll work out, but it doesn't close the door that I still could go and fight now, for example, with the ACB, somebody that I have now a contract with to do commentary work.
Right.
If it comes up and I can make it work, ACB has talked about moving into some areas that I'm very interested in fighting, and financially they're also extremely lucrative and well backed and well funded. Merriback, his pockets are they pay well, and so it kind of came down to a little bit too of just the North American representation and being able to be seen there on TV. The TV bonuses and deals there really kind of put Bellator over the top, and so. But again, Scott's not into the stranglehold of just, well, if you're my guy, you can only fight for me. I'm done with the jealous girlfriend type of promoters that I've had to deal with in the past, and now I can move forward, and if opportunities arise. I mean, hell, maybe the Risen tournament coming up again, in 2018, I'll be able to compete in, and things like that will now be available to me.
So it's a non-exclusive deal,
right? Well, I think what it does is it works out to where they have right of refusal.
Okay.
They can technically tell me no, but I've worked out to where a gentleman's agreement that I said, well, hey, what about these guys? What about those guys? And obviously ACB was somebody I want to keep that door open with, and they were more than accommodating and okay with it. They told me that would be no problem. That was not one of the people on the no-go list.
Awesome. Now, do you want to say how long the contract? How many fights?
I have it's a 4-fight deal.
Okay, 4-fight deal with Bellator. This is exciting news. It's first of all, I think the best time in Bellator's history to join the promotion, because they're not the organization from a few years back where the couple of recognizable or notable names were the old guard guys that were well past their prime. Certainly, they've got a few legends over there, but they've also got guys who are still at the prime and the peak of their careers in all divisions. Over in the heavyweight division, Matt Mitrione comes to mind. I mean, they just got him.
Matt's a competitive heavyweight in any division he goes to, whether it's UFC, Bellator. I think that's what you're seeing now. I mean, especially in a lot of their weight classes. I mean, Michael Chandler, I think, could very well be a force to reckon with, even the UFC. I think now the days of saying that, well, if you're not in the UFC, then why aren't you there? That you're not good enough. And I think you're seeing guys purposely going over to Bellator, and you're only going to see it more and more because of again, it comes down to exposure. And I tell guys that, and that's why my last couple fights with the UFC, you've seen that I was more than okay with and actually pushed for to fight on Fox cards. Because the way I looked at it was like, well, if my base pays the same, obviously you lose out on some pay-per-views, but what you lose out on pay-per-view, what you get in exposure. And exposure is more important for the longevity of your career. If people know who you are, then you can constantly make money off your name in the future. And so, sometimes it's having to look past the dollar you can make now to make more in the future. The only thing that the UFC did was that made it now unappealing to be a part of a Fox card was that, well, that exposure immediately works out to sponsorships. And obviously the Reebok deal put the kibosh on that. So that was one of the things that I'm happy with moving outside the UFC with. That's a huge bonus that regardless of USADA and other situations, I was very unhappy with how Reebok is. And I'm very happy now to be able to go back into the whole sponsorship arena and go out there and start making financial gains in that area.
The sponsors are back. It is back in business for the sponsors. Phoneboothfighting@gmail.com. Let us hear from you, sponsors, right?
Yes.
Let's pull up the heavyweight roster, Bellator, and I thought we'd take a look and see who could be potential matchups. The other thing is that Bellator doesn't have a heavyweight champion right now. So when you talk about great timing, again, this is a great time to just maybe kind of pull a Ryan Bader or a Phil Davis, a guy that's gone over to Bellator, and in a pretty short period of time, both of those guys have been able to hold the light heavyweight title. You might be able to do the same thing in the heavyweight division. So right off the top, as we look at the roster, Fedor Emelianenko at the top of the page.
And he would be my, obviously is one of my stronger, he's missing on the list. Maybe getting a fight before him, just to break some of the ring rust of the fact that it'll be 2 years since I competed. Not a bad idea. But as far as that was definitely a weighing factor in going towards Bellator, is that I've pretty much fought a who's who of the MMA world has been on my roster. If you look at the people that I've faced some of all the legends in my era have pretty much been on there. One very absent mark on there is Fedor Emelianenko, and so that matchup would be ideal.
Bobby Lashley is on there, former pro wrestler, collegiate
and I would
wrestling
very much
great.
like to fight Bobby Lashley.
Yeah.
I think that the reason why that's an awesome opportunity to face him is that if I can make the Brock fight maybe come to fruition here in the next year or so, I think that Brock has all the reasons to face me. There's a storyline behind it. I think it's a big money fight for both of us. The fact that we both were 1-1 against each other. This is the rubber match to see who gets to take all the chips. And so facing Bobby would would be a great type of of run-in. Somebody who's an NCAA champion himself, high-level grappler as far as wrestling base, big, strong, powerful guy. I think Lashley would be somebody definitely great to step into and prepare for, and a tough fight in his own right. I'm not taking anything away from Bobby.
Chet Congo's on there. You beat him once. You submitted him, and while I don't know that that's necessarily been a rematch that's been on top of a lot of people's radar, all of a sudden, it is interesting because you guys have some heat. He was the only guy, I think we've discussed this on the show, where he was kind of the only guy you could really recollect in your career that really seemed to have a genuine disdain for you. Turned his back on you at the weigh-ins and that whole thing because you had said his grappling was subpar, which I don't think was anything short of everybody's default observation, but he seemed to be the last to know.
Something was lost in translation. Yeah. He felt by me saying that he was the weakest grappler at the time on the UFC roster. I think at the time it was him and Pat Barry fighting for who was at the bottom of it. Upset him somehow. And I don't think he realizes that when critique is followed by factual statistics to back it up, it's kind of hard. It's not really talking shit. I'm just kind of pointing out that, be like you getting mad at me because I point out that, hey, your headlights are out. How dare you tell me that? I'm all, well, it's the fucking truth. You know what I mean? So I said that he wasn't very good on the ground, and
and you turned his headlights out.
I did. Then I proceeded to go ahead and choke him unconscious to really drive that point home. So probably doesn't feel very good about me either ways. I don't think I've improved relations.
Don't know if the years have mellowed his opinion or not, but we'll find out when you get over there.
A lot of video of him face down, ass up, asleep. So I'm sure he's not happy about that.
We'll find out when you get back over there to Bellator how he feels about that. Couple of tough Russians, Sergey Karatanov, Vitaly Minakov.
I don't think Vitaly. I think this hasn't been updated. As far as I know, that he's re-signed with. They let him go. He was the former champ. He actually was the champion there, and that's why right now Bellator is without a champion because Vitaly was the champ, and they didn't want to give him a pay raise because for the fact that I think now he's 19-0 or even maybe 20-0. He just had this fight over in Fight Night Global with Bigfoot.
Okay, right.
But no one knows who he is, and that's one of the things about that people still don't get with fighting. That is, we are not an Olympic. This is not the amateurs. We're just purely about winning to get the gold medal. It's also about presentation, entertainment. I mean, obviously there's only one Conor McGregor in the world, but you have to be able to market yourself. Like Chael Sonnen's done a phenomenal job of that. Tito Ortiz, even in retirement, was talking trash outside the fight. He's setting up. Like, those guys know how to market, and it's not always just about being an undefeated fighter. It's whether people want to watch you fight or not. And the problem with Vitaly is that Minakov is, if I went down the street right now and asked even your casual MMA fans, I mean, look, you're a top journalist MMA, and you didn't even know he wasn't even part of the organization anymore.
Me and the Bellator webmaster, neither one of us.
No, he fought over at Fight Night Global against Bigfoot Silva back on June 2nd.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Well, certainly, and that's one thing that Bellator has done a good job of over the last few years is cultivating that Russian presence, not only in the heavyweight division, but throughout the promotion. We talked about Matt Mitrione earlier. He's over there now. Roy Big Country Nelson. This is a guy you have a win over, but he's a household name among hardcore MMA fans. Yeah, and I could easily see a second fight between the two of you guys being made. What do you think about that idea at some point?
I mean, Roy's a tough guy. He still has a missile launcher of a right hand. Very savvy on the ground. I don't think he's ever been submitted in MMA or even jiu-jitsu. Well, I don't know about jiu-jitsu competitions, but in no-gi grappling, I submitted him once back over at a tournament that they had over at John Lewis's school. But he has a win over me point-wise. He beat me on points in a grappling match at Grappler's Quest. And then obviously I have the victory over him in the MMA fight. But, it was a 3-round decision that, still, even though I dominated every round, he was in the fight. He's tough. I've trained with him since then. Roy's a big, strong guy that has a pretty good mind for MMA. He understands things. It just, still, you know what I mean, like just hasn't grown or developed. Like, I mean, what he's dangerous at, he is extremely dangerous at. That overhand right, and his uppercut's pretty dangerous too off the right side. He just hasn't developed anything. Like, you know, like Matt Mitrione has developed as a fighter and grown, but sometimes it's you know, about letting yourself go and not being the smartest guy in the room and finding people smarter than you. And you know, and Roy's such a smart guy that sometimes he has a hard time with that.
Justin Wren is up there too. We need to have side note, but
Wait,
we need to have,
is he building houses in North Africa?
Yes, but he fights to raise money for that. In fact, we need to get Justin on the podcast.
Yeah, I'm not fighting him. I'm going to look like the biggest asshole in the
right.
world.
That's right. All the pygmies will hate you. Yeah.
I mean, I guess I could look at it like I'm fighting him to help him make money.
Yes.
But
well, I tell you what, Justin wants to come on the podcast to talk about his water project and everything. So maybe he can clear up the situation on that when we get him on. But you're right. Yeah, that's a tough one. You know, when you're fighting the guy who's like keeping people from dying by getting clean water. That's a tough one. Yeah. Smart to maybe just go for Fedor. All right. Well, that's our big news. And
sorry, I'm making sure the wife isn't calling.
Yeah. Okay. All right. No, she's. How has the? Well, you know what? While we're talking about Mrs. Mir, what was the reaction like in the Mir household? Because you know you've been out of action, and it was known all along that you wanted to fight again. You've been traveling a ton to do all the ACB commentary and all that kind of stuff. So how happy was everybody to kind of know things were returning to a normal order?
She was extremely happy. It's funny, my wife's a pessimist. She, you know, everything is always going to be the worst case scenario. It's never going to happen. And if you'd have talked to her, she was thinking that I was never going to be able to fight again. No one wanted to watch me fight. That my career was over with. That, you know, I couldn't have paid people to. I mean, that, you know, it's funny how she gets sometimes. But I mean, she does that with a lot of things where it's just, you know, there's no chance of any improvement. You know.
And now we've got good news today. Frank Mir to Bellator, and also just to clear up one thing. You will stay out of action in the MMA cage until the spring, right? Until the USADA suspension's up. Even though and we talked about this when you got your release from the UFC, but even though you're out of contract with the UFC, you're going to go ahead and wait out the rest of that USADA sanction and then be free and clear.
Right. That was
you can sign. You obviously can sign with somebody right now. You did.
That was kind of the give and take. I wanted to be released from the UFC because it's funny. I called it from the beginning. And they're like, well, no, yes, no, and ultimately I was right that UFC, like right now, I'm not sanctioned by a body because I fought in Australia that had no sanctioning body. The issue occurred there. So USADA was the one that made the recommendation. And USADA is not a sanctioning, you know, they don't have any authority to come in and actually say you're not allowed to fight. They in turn make their recommendation, which even says in the way it's structured contractually, to the UFC. And the UFC then basically suspended me. So my point was that as a employer that has my contract, you can't suspend me and keep me under contract at the same time. That's you know, it's unlawful. and so basically I could fight that in court, but the UFC's pockets are deeper than mine. And even though I ultimately would have succeeded because I was right, it would have been a while. So a way of kind of a mutual, like, I'm not going to take you to battle over this, but we'll let you go now so you can at least start discussing things. Because still being under contract, Bellators, the ACBs, the different organizations in the world wouldn't come within 10 feet of me because they don't want to be sued by the UFC that they're talking to a fighter who's under contract. So I had to wait till I had my mutual release, so that way at least now I can start training and setting up a fight for April. Whereas if I had gone the other way, yes, I could have fought in April, but that doesn't still mean the UFC had released me and given me a fight. So who knows how long this could have drug out for. So at least now I have a definitive time that in April I can be back and fighting without any restrictions.
And this will give you an opportunity to do some promotion on behalf of Bellator to build up a fight and really give it its due. And I guess one other thing on that end, because people are fans of your commentating, that's what you're doing for ACB. Was there any discussion of you doing any commentating for Bellator?
No, and that's something I put out there right off the bat, and they felt like their roster's full and that they have their guys, and I'm more than happy to stay with ACB. In fact, actually, I'm very happy to stay with Brian. I mean, that was one thing I made a little bit of a trying to try out things. I worked with
Brian Lacey,
Brian
who's
Lacey,
partner in ACB.
One Punch Podcast.
With Brad Pickett.
With Brad Pickett. Brian's a phenomenal guy to work with as far as commentary, and I feel like we're a great team. In fact, I've had the teary, huggy, conversation with him that if I go work for somebody else, I want it to be both of us to go together. You know what I mean? And because I feel that, like, if you listen to my commentary that I have with Fight Night Global, it was okay, it was good, but it's really a cohesive team thing. It takes two people to go in there and really know what they're doing. And
well, he trains a little bit. Did you try to get him a Bellator contract? That would be the way to lock him in.
I did. I was like, hey, come in here and we'll maybe do a one-off, because he has his. But he says he'll do more fights when I do more stand-up, since we're both at one-on-one. So.
All right. Okay. Excellent. Well, and speaking of stand-up and phone booth fighting live shows, now you're promotion mates with the American gangster Chael Sonnen.
I know. I'm extremely interested in that.
Yeah.
And then Chael and I will actually be able to discuss it further on the mat in ADCC.
That's right. You got that coming up.
Yeah, we'll be there on September 22nd to the 24th. We'll be in Helsinki, Finland.
Yeah.
And be able to do our match there. And then I'll jump on a plane and fly quickly down to the ACB in Sheffield.
Well, this is exciting stuff. Well, congratulations on this, Frank. I'm happy for you, and I know this has been a long process to get through. Yeah, absolutely. She's
back
happy.
In the gym training, and
I
have a goal. So she's like, she even said, like, this little glimpse into what retirement might look like.
It can wait.
Wasn't pretty.
It can wait. All right. If you're just checking us out for the first time and you don't know about this twice weekly podcast we do, it's called Phone Booth Fighting. Myself and Frank do it here in the bunker at stately Mirror Manor, deep inside the bowels of his sprawling estate. So you can subscribe to it, as I mentioned, in iTunes, Stitcher Radio, SoundCloud, Google Play. You can watch it if you're watching the live video on YouTube, our Phone Booth Fighting page there, and also phoneboothfighting.com. That's our website. That's where you find out how to support the show. That's where all the previously aired and archived episodes are if you want to catch up. It's also where the official Phone Booth Fighting shop is if you want to get a snazzy t-shirt like the one that Frank Mir has on there. We'll hook you up. All right, for Frank Mir, I'm Richard Hunter, and we'll see you guys next time for a proper full episode of Phone Booth Fighting. Thanks for being with us.